What's up, everybody? It's Friday. That means it's time for Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. And it's not just any Friday, it happens to also be my birthday. Shout out to me. Got people in the chat saying hey. And I'll tell you what, since it's my birthday, I wanted to have on a special guest today. Very special guest, the sensei himself, the Waffle House champion of the world, Marcus Grant. Marcus, what's up, brother? How you doing?
What's going on, man? Happy birthday, first of all. I don't know if you realize this. You and I bookend the month of May.
Hell yeah.
Because I'm May 1st and you are May 31st. So we are literally at the opposite ends of the month. So, it still counts. We're still both May folks. So congratulations and happy birthday, man.
Strong. That's a strong month. That's a strong.
Man.
I encourage
Absolutely.
Everybody, sneak your birthday in there. I think that's what needs to be changed next. It's like you could change your name. You could change a lot of things. I mean, just pick a day. Pick a day you like.
That you like,
I think we should start with the people who are born on like Christmas, right? Like they should get first dibs.
Yeah.
Like you're allowed to change your birthday first, and then we'll trickle in.
And I would say my wife would be pretty early in the list because she's mid-January, and she's like it sort of sucks because by the time her birthday comes around, like people have already spent all their money for the holidays. They're tired, like they don't necessarily want to go out and party because they're just exhausted. So like mid-January birthdays, I think probably get it.
They get maybe a little re-gifting going on in there.
Right. Exactly.
The bread maker you got for Christmas, So
when we first started dating too, like she had a birthday party and like we met, she worked at the NFL and that was how we met originally. And she has like pushed the start time of her birthday party back because it was a Saturday and there were playoff games going on. So half of us had to work. So she had to like delay the start of her party because of that.
Okay. So we'll get her in the first wave, wave of people that are allowed to change their birthday. Mm-hmm. And shout out in the chat if you want to change your birthday or if you have a sweet birthday. I mean, this is my birthday. I'll tell you, if you can have a birthday in late May, you get that Memorial Day 3-day weekend every year. Last Monday in May by the rules, right? And it's not one where people are doing other things. It's a nice one. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, I like my mid-May or early May. It's great because there's no major holidays around there. Like people are still in town. The weather's starting to get nice in most places around the country. It's a pretty good day.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But speaking of the other things we got to do, we got to get to today's goal. And we got the wide receiver position today. So it's a big one. What we've been doing is going through and kind of just hitting on the ADP for these positions. I did tight end myself. I brought on Theo Greminger to do QBs. I brought on Heath Cummings last week to do running backs. Today, we have the very special Marcus Grant. And I'll tell you, I was doing the graphics myself recently. It was kind of a running joke. These were last week's graphics. The graphics department was getting some.
Graphic design is my passion.
I know. So I figured you coming on, being a passionate, self-described nerd, I decided to jazz things up a little bit.
These are very nice. I have to say, looking at these are very.
Here are the new ones, folks. Here are the new ones. Honestly, my editor, shout out John and Pemba, he watched last week's episode and was like, dude, he's like, we gotta do things up. So he actually gave me a quick tutorial. I made these myself, and here we are. So those just joining us, here's what we're doing. Going through ADP based on FFPC Superflex. It's the only place to play Superflex right now. Use promo code COOP over there, COOP, at myffpc.com. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. You can get set up there. You can play Dynasty. But we're looking at Superflex because, everybody's been looking at some of the other sites that do single QB. So that's what we're doing here. And what I did, Marcus, is I went through and I essentially grouped these guys based on where there were drop-offs in ADP, right? So if you look at these tiers and you say that's wrong, that's upsetting, first of all, it's not my fault. Second of all, it's a good thing because that means there's things we could take advantage of, right? If you go through here and you say, wow, that's wrong, it's totally different than everyone else, that means we can go over there and take advantage of it. So without further ado, here's the first group here. For those listening at home, round 1 in Superflex, it's only CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, and Jamar Chase because the QBs are pushing people down. And then round 2, you get a group of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Garrett Wilson. And in your single QB, this slide is essentially your first round, right? That's what you're seeing, Marcus, in single
QB. Yeah. I mean, I think this is a pretty solid list here. I would say the only one that makes me a little bit nervous, but not even extremely, is probably Garrett Wilson.
Okay.
And that's only because we are still sort of dependent on Aaron Rodgers, one, not deciding he's going to go off to South America and go on another spirit quest. Also, I guess also potentially running for office, I guess is what
he's got a lot of weird stuff on the table. A lot of pivot moves I mean, if we're ranking guys that are most likely to quit mid-season and do something
right.
weird, he's way
Right.
at the top. Way at
I
the
mean,
top.
it could be he goes to a cave in Bolivia. He could decide to run for office.
Start a movie with Miles Teller, right?
Right.
Like he's
That,
got all sorts of weird stuff.
or, more realistically, he could just get hurt again because, the guy's 40 years old and that's what happens to 40-year-old quarterbacks. So, I mean, I think that's the only one that gives me a little bit of concern. That being said, I'm still drafting Garrett Wilson. And I guess if you're getting him that late, I mean, you're talking about pick 23, you're looking at late second round. I think you sort of priced in a little bit of that Aaron Rodgers risk. And I guess, you can also fall back on it by saying, look, last year, he pretty much didn't have Aaron Rodgers for the entire season and still put up some really great numbers with an absolute mess at quarterback. So I guess that's the thing you can sort of lean back on. So that's, I think that's the good and bad potentially of Garrett Wilson being in that slot.
Yeah, they added Tyrod, which it's not terrible, but like they had Joe Flacco. Like that, if it was like Rodgers and Flacco, I would be like, no problem at all. Because
Right.
like he's willing to really let it fly. But the rest of those guys, before we move on, Puka Nacua, you're in, locked in. Maybe not exactly the same as last year, but you think as well should be first, second round pick in these formats.
Yeah, I think so. Although I will say this, I don't have a problem with it, but it also has sort of had me slide a little bit more to Cooper Kupp just because I think the price is nicer. I'm sure we'll get to him in just in a little bit.
I love doing that. I love that's the one of my very favorite moves. The wide receiver, quote unquote wide receiver 2, the discount you get, because when you go and start looking at the top 24 wide receivers every year, top 32, I'll tell you what, it's not just the number one wide receiver on every team. There's a lot of teams that have no good wide receivers and a lot of teams that have 2.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the thing there. I mean, you look at Puka right there. I think you can say a similar thing for AJ Brown, right? Just one pick ahead of him, where you can go and you can get skinny Batman Devonta Smith a little bit later, and in theory get almost identical production to that. So again, I understand why these guys are going where they are, and I have no problem with it. But it also means that I might shop a little bit differently when it comes to that team in that position.
Exactly. So let's get to the second group here, group 2. And so those guys were all going in the first and second round in your super flex. This is mostly third and fourth round. In the third round, you get Marvin Harrison Jr., Drake London. Then in the fourth round, Chris Olave at pick 38, Nico Collins 43, Devontae Adams 44, Brandon Ayuk 48. So if you're going to snag somebody from this group, who are you most likely to gravitate towards? Because there's a lot of very different players in there.
There are a lot of different players here. Ayuk is the one that I don't know if this is still concern from people that he might get traded or what have you, but Ayuk at that spot just feels like a value to me because it was obvious last year, and I think even before, end of the year before that he really had become the number one wide receiver in San Francisco. And look, I watch all the Niner games. I grew up as a Niner fan. I love Deebo Samuel, and I love what Deebo Samuel means to the 49ers. I think we sort of overweight what Deebo Samuel is in fantasy. And I think it goes back to a couple of years ago when he really was the do everything guy, right? When he was not only, being a great wide receiver, but he also turned into a pretty solid running back. Remember, that wasn't by choice. That was out of necessity because they had issues. They had a lot of guys injured. They ended up going to get Christian McCaffrey to kind of solve some of those problems. Since then, Debo's one of those guys who is great for real football that doesn't always 100% translate to fantasy. But what Brandon Ayuk does straight up translates to fantasy in this offense. And I hope that we are done arguing about Brock Purdy at this point. Like, okay, sure. If you're going to tell me that he's not Patrick Mahomes, I'm going to be like, yeah, of course not, man. But I think at this point, we should understand that he is very good in the context of this offense. He can get the ball to his receivers. He can support a number of pass catchers. And he and Brandon Ayuk have a thing. They have a connection. And it's obvious that Ayuk is the number one wide receiver in a very good offense. So again, I don't know. I get, Devontae Adams has track record. Chris Olave is a guy we love, but I don't know why Brandon Ayuk isn't going higher than some of these guys.
It's the draft capital thing with Purdy for sure, right? Because I mean, as a Patriots fan, people forget that there was a period where people thought it was a mistake to get rid of Drew Bledsoe.
Yeah.
And then there was the period where everyone thought that the team was only good because of the defense. And then eventually people were like, okay, well, for the first 8 years of his career, everything we've seen looks good. All the statistics look good. Maybe he's good. That's what it is with Purdy. It's like no one even can find a statistic to pull and say, well, here's the problem. It's all good, right? Like it looks good. The stats are good. So
Yeah.
I'm willing to believe.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny too because you mentioned Tom Brady, right? But like even the early part of Tom Brady's career he was not a great fantasy
No,
quarterback.
it's not.
Like
He
it was
never.
like
He kind of was only that one year he threw 50 touchdown passes.
yeah. Which side note, the only time I ever drafted Tom Brady was the year after that, which infamously he blew out his knee in the first quarter of the first game, and I just remember being at my buddy's house screaming at the television, "Get up!" Because I was like, I had blown a draft pick on him, and ended up struggling that season. But that's
Hey, of
neither here
course,
nor
dude.
there.
Now that's how it goes, man. That's the way she goes. Yeah, and I will say with Brandon Ayuk, like teams, we talked about it with the two wide receivers on one team. This team has the additional benefit of using the fullback for
Yeah,
what 50% of the snaps with Kyle Juszczyk.
yeah.
The more guys you have on the field that aren't soaking up targets, the better it is for everybody else. That's why this is the only team in the world that can really have two high end pass catchers, two high end wide receivers, and a decent tight end. Is because they
Mhm.
got this one guy out there that's not soaking up targets. So it's a beautiful thing. From now that ADP on Marvin Harrison Jr., we can't walk away just yet. Is that a yes or a no? Pick 31. And what would amount to looks like here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wide receiver 9 as a rookie who has not played yet.
Yeah. So I say this. Was just finishing a mock draft. It was not a super flex, so take that into account. But I did take Marvin Harrison with the second pick in the second round.
Mm.
So I think right now, because folks like us sickos who have been thinking about this for months and have been drafting probably for months, if not weeks. We're all sort of flag planting, right? We're all sort of staking our belief in what Marvin Harrison is and can be as the most talented player, arguably the most talented wide receiver in this draft, going to a situation where he walks into a huge target share because there's nobody in Arizona that can really challenge him with a quarterback that is good enough, right? We can still debate whether or not, Kyler Murray is the guy to get the Cardinals to the promised land. But at least in terms of fantasy, we know he can support a high-end target earner. And that's what Marvin Harrison is. So at pick 31, I get it. We are all sort of flag planting here. I also sort of think that what happens is when we get a little bit closer to the season, right? We get into July and August and more of the casual kind of folks start to jump in and start to pay attention. I think a lot of these ADPs start to level out
Yeah.
because the people who haven't been up to their eyeballs in NFL content for the summer, they look around, they're like, all right, I mean, I've heard about this Marvin Harrison guy. He's a rookie. I don't know that I can make that pick. So I think you'll start to see that come down again. Similarly, I think you'll see some like late round veterans that maybe we all sort of forget about. I think you start to see them come up because the muscle memory of saying like, hey, I remember Adam Thielen. It's probably like
Yes.
the gravity's going to pull him back up a little bit
That
higher too.
that kid from your league that did his research the morning of and would
Mhm.
always draft Larry Fitzgerald and he'd always be good, right?
Yeah.
That kid still needs to show up and start making his
The
pick.
guy who picked up the magazine at the 7-Eleven on his way to the draft.
Yeah, that's the guy. That guy shows up to really skew the ADPs. And I'm the one spot I've been preaching this, Marcus, is with the running backs. Because
Mhm.
right now you go and do a best ball mania, it's going to be all wide receivers.
Yep.
Then when you sit down with your buddies at home, guess what? Those guys and girls are still going to be drafting running backs. That's just how it goes with some of those leagues. Like if you draft with only experts and only the best ball people, then sure, it might be like that. But in my hometown league, people still draft running backs,
Yep.
right? So you gotta be wary of that. The ADP's not always going to line right up.
100%.
Let's go to group 3 here. Here, and we do see a bit of a drop in the ADP from the last group. There is a bit of a jump here. See, it goes from pick 48 to pick 54 with Mike Evans. You got DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, Debo Samuel, Jalen Waddle, who just got a big old bag of money, and
Mhm.
then Malik Nabers, Cooper Cup, Devonta Smith, Stephon Diggs. So a lot of still really solid names in here. Anybody you gravitate towards that if this is the board, like say everybody on the last page is gone. If this is the board in the best ball draft and you're feeling like you need a wide receiver, who are you clicking?
I think I touched on it earlier. I mean, Cooper Kupp, Devonta Smith are a
Yeah.
couple names that I'm really big on because they're going to get similar target shares and I think similar production to the guys that line up on the other side of them. I mean, Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua, I don't expect that their stats are going to be all that different at the end of the year. I think you can
Right.
say the same for Devonta Smith and AJ Brown, but here it is. We're getting those guys 4 to 5 rounds later. So, again, if you want to take Puka, I'm not going to point and laugh. I think that's certainly, a pretty wise decision. I'm just going to take the discount on some guys that I think can give me similar numbers and maybe spend those other rounds. You know, super flex, right? I'm going to get myself a quarterback or two. I can get myself another high end wide receiver, maybe depending on how the board falls. Maybe I get myself a tight end and still come back and get some quality wide receivers here in the 6th round.
Yeah, and I think people forget that Cooper Cup, I mean, he could still be the number 1 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah.
There's nothing I've seen that suggests that that's not possible, So, and you look at some of these other guys, again, Jalen Waddle, another one where they use that fullback, Alec Ingold, so much. Do we think that Jonnu Smith is going to show up and really soak up targets? Do we think Odell Beckham Jr. is a full-time player at this point? It's actually the perfect place for him to go because he's not a full-time player. He has no interest in blocking. So,
Right.
right? So what's better than say, "Hey, we'll send in Alec Ingold to block and you take a little break," right? I mean, it's kind of a nice spot for him, not a nice spot for fantasy for that person.
No,
So,
but it's funny too because you talk about them using the fullback. I mean, let's not forget Mike McDaniel was in San Francisco for a number of years before he went over and became the head coach in Miami. So, I mean, we'd be foolish to think he didn't take a lot of those principles with him when he became a head coach.
I'm telling you right now, Marcus, I'm warning people. I'm warning people. Bobby Slowick over with the Texans. They have Andrew Beck over there.
Hmm.
When they signed Ben Skronik, 10 different 10 different Texans beat writers said, tweeted, "Hey, this guy plays a little fullback." And I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, well, this wide receiver is going to play fullback. Who's coming out of the game? Because it's not going to be the running back. It's not going to be
Right.
Dalton Schultz. It worries me a little bit. It worries me on who that's going to be. Which I guess before we go, I'll ask. Nico Collins goes the round before. Stephon Diggs at pick 66. Is that again, new offense? Kind of, we don't know what it's going to look like. Is that a pick you're willing to make there, or are you just staying away
I just, I will take more chances on Texans in best ball than I'm willing to, I think, in redraft because
from? Yeah,
I think trying to sort them out week to week is going to be a headache. Now I would rather click on CJ Stroud in pretty much all formats, right? Like I'll take CJ Stroud because he gets the benefit of all of their production. But because I think we saw it last year too. Some weeks were Nico Collins weeks, some weeks were Tank Dell
right.
weeks. And now you add Stephon Diggs into the mix. And okay, sure, he may not be as great as he once was. He's still a really quality player. And we're gonna have some Stephon Diggs weeks in there too. So it's gonna be frustrating. So I am probably not as likely to click on that. I guess of the three, again, this goes back to the price of it, right? Tank Dell seems to have the nicest ADP of the three of them, and the reports being that he's back working out again, and it seems like he's going to be ready for the start of the season. He had that unfortunate shooting a few weeks ago, but it seems like he's progressing really, really well. So if he's ready to go for week 1, why not take the risk of him where he's going right now? It just seems like a better value for me.
Right, and I'll tell you, to your point there, I think people forget what it truly looks like when you have a really good quarterback who plays the right way. It doesn't look like Eli Manning throwing it to Odell Beckham Jr. 195 times, right? Like
Right.
it sometimes looks like the ball going. You look at the stat sheet and you're like, wow, C.J. Stroud threw to 10 different players today.
Mhm.
Aaron Rodgers threw touchdowns to James Jones and Robert Tunyon and Tom Brady throwing touchdowns to David Patton and whoever. Sometimes it just looks like a guy that runs the plays the way they're supposed to, and the ball goes all over the place. So
Right, right.
you got to be careful with that.
Which, by the way, I see in the chat Hal saying, "What if Diggs is highly motivated and has an actual good relationship with his QB for the first time ever?" I do think there is a strain of the multiverse where this is Stephon Diggs's like supervillain arc, right? Where he just
Agree.
goes straight up Thanos on everybody in the league to prove to the Bills, y'all made a mistake in getting rid of me. So like I do think that is in the realm of
It's
possibilities
so
this year.
funny, dude. I actually just got goosebumps, dude. I just pictured because every step of the way, that's been it, right? Like he hated his coaches at Maryland. Like they were fighting on the field. He's like, I'll prove you wrong here. The Vikings trade him away. I'll prove you wrong over here. And
Right.
now the Bills prove him wrong, and now he's finally hit Super Saiyan mode. He's at the very top.
Although also though, if you're like beefing with people everywhere, like dude, maybe the problem is you.
You know the saying goes, dude.
You
Yeah.
know?
But at the same time, the one place where you can do that is football, right?
True.
Like the one place where you can be Richie Incognito is football. Like,
As
and
long as
no,
you're performing.
of course, exactly. And well, that's it. That's it, right? It's like that's the one workplace where at the end of the on Monday morning, they're like, well, okay, you know, like
Right.
you can take an extra day off of this week, right? And we'll just see you on Sunday. So it's funny how that goes in football. Is there anybody here before we jump that you just with this group, especially again, there's different ADPs on every different side. I've been on
Mhm.
all of them. Is there anybody in here where you're just like, nah, I'm not doing that?
The closest is probably Malik Nabers, but even here, again, this being super flex, he's bounced down to round 6. Maybe I can sort of make a case for it. It comes down to that old discussion about, do you want the number 1 wide receiver on a mediocre to bad offense versus say the number 2 receiver on a good to great offense? And I think Malik Nabers has the makings of the wide receiver 1 there in New York. The problem is he's catching passes from either Daniel Dones, as he called him on draft night, uh, Daniel Jones, or what, Drew Lock is the potential. So like,
Yeah, I kind of
and
like Drew Lock, but not that much.
right, that's sort of
The
the thing,
extent
right?
of kind of like Drew Lock does not translate to I'm drafting Malik
Exactly. I
Nabers
mean,
at
look, man, we still
15.
holding on to the fact that Drew Lock was like rapping on the sideline, right? And that was like a cool gift that
Dude,
everybody
I feel
posted
so
to
seen
go
right
around.
now. I'm sure Linda, shout out Linda. And Linda's a big fan of yours as well.
Awesome.
She's the same way.
I'm a
That's
fan of her
actually,
too, so
you
it's
know what?
cool.
That's actually oddly how I first heard of you. Half a
Really?
decade ago. Half a decade ago, I just started doing this stuff, and Linda was like, "Oh my god, Marcus Grant followed me," and I was like, "Who's that?" And I went and looked at your profile, and I was like, "How do I not know who this guy is?" And ever since then, I've been following you and really enjoying your stuff.
Awesome. Well,
So,
thank you.
yeah. So shout
Um,
out Linda. Shout out
Thanks.
Linda.
Absolutely shout out to Linda. We'll raise a white claw in her honor.
Oh yeah.
But no, but get back to the point. Malik Nabers sort of makes me nervous just because I think, a lot of people have been drafting him closer to his ceiling, and I don't know that the ceiling, at least this year, is as high as we want it to be, just because there are so many more questions in that offense. I mean, I think losing Saquon is going to take a big bite out of what that offense can do. So like
And we
I mean,
forget.
if I'm a defense, I'm like, what do you want? I'm not. Daniel Jones isn't going to beat me. Like, what do I have to worry about in that offense? I just try to take away Malik Nabers, and that's it.
Right, and just how we overestimate what good football looks like, we also kind of, try and jump through hoops with what bad football looks like,
Yeah,
right? We're like, "Oh, yeah, that just means they'll throw a ton." What it actually usually looks like is the Jets or the Giants, where it's like just more punts, right? Like more punts and less plays,
a
like
lot of
less
3
points,
and outs.
right? We in our mind, we always default to like Jaguars Blake Bortles. That's what we say. That's what we think it's going to be like huck it, chuck it football. But it's really not. It's
But like
really
Blake Bortles' bad football was still kind of fun
well. That's the
because
thing. That's what we think it's going to be, but it's
right,
usually not. It's
it was
usually
like a
not.
roller coaster, man. Like it was like
Yeah.
especially not being a Jaguars fan where I wasn't living and dying with every
Oh yeah.
single play. Like as an
Exactly.
outside observer, it was a lot of fun to watch.
Right.
So
That's my attitude on Kyler Murray. I'm like, I don't care if the Cardinals win. I don't care if he plays video games. I care that
right.
he's scrambling around and he's the top 5 quarterback all time in points per game. So
And he
that's where I'm
still
at.
runs like a little kid who stole the ball from some
It's
bigger kids.
the best, dude. Is the best. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Malik Nabers, he's a nightmare for analysts in the aspect that hindsight will always be right on him.
Mhm.
Where if he's good, everyone will say, of course he's good. He's Malik Nabers. And if he's bad, everyone will say, of course he was bad. He's on the Giants. So
Right.
we're just gonna let's move on. Let's just say draft him if you feel like it. If you feel like
Yeah.
taking that risk.
Yeah.
Group 4 here. And this is actually a smaller group because there's a big jump in ADP from this
Mm.
group to the next. And it's oddly an entire round, as you'll see. So it really, you do have to scroll down as Pete Overzet would say, you have to scroll the F down if you don't want to take someone from this group. So it's DK Metcalf in the 6th round, pick 70, Zay Flowers 71, Tank Dell 73, T Higgins 78, George Pickens 80, and then a big drop. So first, I'll ask from this group who are you taking, and then when we get to the next slide, we'll see if maybe you are interested in scrolling down from. So if you're on the board and this is the crew, what do we got?
Um, I might look and see who's at running back.
Yeah,
But
well, that's what the big drop in ADP is. I
yeah,
swear, you look at it, and everyone's saying, "I'll get my tight end. I'll just take a
yeah,
tight
man.
end here."
Maybe I'll get my tight end. Maybe I'll get my running. Maybe I get another running back here or something.
Quarterbacks, yeah, that's what's going
Um,
on here.
of this group, I would probably tend to go. Actually, I think I might be going George Pickens here. Um,
Okay,
he is the number one receiver, and uh, look, I know I think whoever ends up being the quarterback in Pittsburgh, whether it's Russell Wilson, whether Justin Fields takes over, like it can't be worse than Kenny Pickett,
I
right?
believe in Russell Wilson. I'll flat out say it right now. I think he's going to be the starting quarterback all year long for that
I
team.
mean, I think he'll be the starter in week 1. I do think we'll see Justin Fields at some point, but maybe later than I think a lot of people anticipate. I also believed in Russ when he went to Denver. Like I thought he was going to resurrect himself. I was shocked that it went as badly as it did. But Pickens is going to be the main target earner in this offense. Let's just hope that Arthur Smith doesn't go galaxy brain on it the way he did in Atlanta all those years. So I think of this group, he's the guy that I think is the bona fide number one wide receiver on his team. I mean, DK, I guess you could say that about DK too, but I expect we're going to see more JSN this year. I think Tyler Lockett. I am an unabashed Tyler Lockett stan, and even though he's getting older and declining, he's still going to be out there and he's still going to get targets. But for Pittsburgh, I don't see a lot of target competition for George Pickens this year.
Yeah, Tyler Lockett. The thing is, people say, "Oh, if Tyler Lockett gets hurt, JSN's going to go crazy." I don't think people realize how Tyler Lockett plays football.
Right?
That dude is not interested in contact at all. He's making the correct business decisions.
I'm
Julian
not
Edelman,
mad at it.
yeah, Julian Edelman used to do the same thing, and Antonio Brown used to do that to some degree too. I
Mhm.
Up until the perfect hit, there were a lot of plays where Antonio Brown would scramble around all over and find his way out of bounds or find his way down. So it's a smart way to play, and
Yeah, man.
Lockett, sometimes it can be frustrating if you're a Seahawks fan and it goes down a little short of that first down marker, but it's better to have him for the next play. With this group, personally, I don't know about you, but that all that talk that we've been doing so far about fullbacks has me a little worried about Tank Dell, right?
Hmm.
I just worry that it's going to be Diggs and Nico Collins in the two wide receiver sets. Caps the upside a little bit. Again, in this format, best ball, he's gonna be just fine because
Yeah.
we saw how explosive and cool he is, right? Like he's gonna have a couple cool games. But I just worry that some of these other guys, there's a real possibility that they could be wide receiver ones. DK Metcalf has been already. T. Higgins, if it's highly consolidated among him and Chase, and then you made the case for George Pickens. So it's entirely possible. I just worry Tank Dell might be third fiddle now, but
Yeah, I mean that's a fair concern for sure.
So with this next group, I'll ask then the question I kind of prefaced: is there someone in this next group that you would flat out take over all these guys? Uh, and we got Amari Cooper pick 83, Marquise Brown pick 86, Keenan Allen pick 88, Christian Kirk pick 90, Terry McLaurin pick 91.
It's probably Amari Cooper, followed by Terry McLaurin.
Okay.
I'm excited about what Jaden Daniels can mean for Terry McLaurin. I mean, the fact that we were happy to have Taylor Heineke throwing the ball, at times there in Washington tells you a lot about what the quarterback situation has been. But I think Amari Cooper, he had that reputation for all those years, and certainly with the Raiders and even with the Cowboys, that he was just inconsistent. And look, it was earned. Like he definitely was. Like he would, you could get the 40-point game, and then he'd follow it up with a couple of like sevens. But I think he shed that. My only concern is, what do we get out of Deshaun Watson? But I think even if Deshaun Watson is just average, if he's just mid, I think that's good enough because Amari Cooper has shown that he has continued to be a playmaker. He is of this group. I think he's the guy that I take. I'm not worried about Jerry Jeudy. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think
It starts at the top.
Yeah.
The targets start at the top. They're the it's that's what happens when if you have a ton of volume, then you have wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, but it starts with the guy getting the first reads, right? So Amari Cooper, if they're just going to be middle of the pack in terms of pass attempts, he's still going to be fine. He's still going to
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah, so he's the guy that I like the most. Like I said, McLaurin's right behind him. The guy I like the least, or at least that worries me the most, is probably Keenan Allen in
Yeah.
this group. And I love Keenan Allen, but an older guy going to a new offense, probably working primarily out of the slot. Curious about what his ADOT is going to be this season. And if they go 2 wide receivers, is he the guy that comes off the field? I mean, do they roll with DJ Moore and Rome Odunze? I mean, how is that going to work? So Keenan's the guy that sort of concerns me the most here.
And Shane Waldron is one of those, 7 tight end rotation type guys
Yeah,
that
right.
he obviously has to go get Gerald Everett, right? He was the tight end coach when they drafted Everett with the Rams
Mhm.
and brought him to Seahawks. So obviously he's got to bring him in. That does annoy me. And yeah, you're right. The word that scares me is complacency, right? Like I'm worried that you listen to Austin Eckler talk, and he's like, "Yep, I'm ready to be in a committee."
Yep.
Right? He's like, "I'll be Ray Allen. Like I'll just hang out in the corner and shoot the threes." I'm a little worried. You get worried at a certain point that these guys are willing to go Larry Fitz and just be like, "All right, I'll hang in the slot and I'm here when you need me." So yeah, it is a little concerning. Marquise Brown, that one's interesting to me because on one hand, you got a guy who really, when you look at the targets, he's been a target hog,
Mhm.
and now he gets a quarterback upgrade, but he goes to a place where guys just go and hang out, like so.
Yeah, except that, like, look at the guys who have gone and hung out there. I
Yeah,
mean, we're
MVS.
talking about MVS. We're talking about even Juju, right? Who, like,
Yeah,
Juju had that 1 or 2 good years in Pittsburgh and really nothing else beyond that. I had to remind myself about a month ago that he was still in New England. Like, it
don't
literally had
remind me. I
it
gotta be the
literally
Patriot stuff behind me
it
all this
literally
stuff.
had just flown out of my brain that he was a Patriot.
I
So I mean, like, I think, yes, we've seen guys go there and really just kind of hang around, but I think Marquise Brown is a step above some of those other guys.
Yeah, Marquise Brown is very smart. I'll say this because he saw Juju go there and have 900 yards and get paid $33 million by my
Mhm.
lovely Patriots. So if you're Marquise Brown, people are like, "Why did he take $7 million?" If he stays healthy, he's not making $7 million. He's gonna make a
Right.
lot of. He's gonna make a lot of money.
Right.
And that's why I'm still cool with Xavier Worthy and Dynasty because it's like I think Marquise Brown's just popping in for a little tryout year. A
Yeah,
little
man. It's
bet on yourself.
it's a step ladder. It's a stepping stone gig to maybe something bigger potentially.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Terry McLaurin, man. I watched Andre Johnson had never have the right quarterback, and it's time. It's time for Terry to have, it's time for him to have
We
a
couldn't get
step.
it done. We could never really get it done for Allen Robinson. Let's try to get it done for Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, right. For all those guys, you got to imagine those guys are rooting for him. Uh, the opposite with some of these guys, like Brandon Cooks, like only having Tom Brady and Drew Brees and
Right?
Marcus Valdez-Scantling, like only playing with superstars. So it's time. Let's spread it out a little bit. Next crew here, we have some players coming up, imagine. Jaden Reed, pick 95, Calvin Ridley, 99, Chris Godwin, 101, Xavier Worthy at 102, Rashi Rice, 110, Lad McConkey, 111, Roman Duze, 113. Who pops for you here?
All right, so maybe I am out of my head here. I've been drafting a lot of Lad McConkey.
Okay.
And this might be me just sort of telling myself a story that may not 100% be true. Because, like, everything the Chargers have done this offseason says they are going to run the football. They're going to run the hell out of the football, right? I mean, you don't hire Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman. You bring in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, whatever he may have left in the tank. You go out, you draft an offensive lineman very high in the first round. You don't do all that stuff unless you were going to hashtag establish it, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. But they lose Keenan Allen. They lose Mike Williams. Quentin Johnston is coming off a miserable rookie year. Josh Palmer, I mean, we know who he is. He's a nice player, but he's like a wide receiver 3, I think, in most offenses on most teams.
Right.
Lad McConkey is a really talented player. He's not just a slot guy. You can kind of move him and do different things with him. So when they do throw the football, I think more often than not, he might be the first look in this offense. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity. Now, granted, you know, he is not a wide receiver one. No, nowhere close to a wide receiver one in fantasy terms. He's probably a third or fourth wide receiver, but I think he's going to be maybe the top option in this Charger offense. And for that alone, that's why they might not use Justin Herbert a lot. That doesn't mean he's a bad player or a bad quarterback. And I think he can support a guy like Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find out what kind of quarterback he is. I think he is good. And we talked about it earlier briefly that good quarterbacks figure it out. Like Tom Brady had garbage for a good chunk of his career. He figured it out, right?
Yeah.
So, and again, got to remember that, every team wants to run the football. Running is the luxury of the winning team. And I think the schedule is actually pretty good for this team for the most part to win some games. Yeah, the one spot where I'm drafting a lot of McConkey, but I do worry about him for the people that play the schedule game, championship week. How does this sound for a shootout, Marcus? The Greg Roman and Jim Harbaugh ground and pound, punch your face in circus is going to bring their show up to sunny New England in December to play that team for championship.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to win $1 million, that's the problem I have with Herbert. Not so much with McConkey.
This feels like Iowa Northwestern kind of territory.
Yeah, Iowa, baby. Let's go. Yeah. I want to ask you about one player I've been drafting a lot of from this group is I actually like Chris Godwin, especially on this format. For folks just joining us, we're looking at FFPC. So this is full PPR, tight end premium, and super flex. So if you're looking and saying, "Wow, these guys are going late," it's because there's a bunch of tight ends and quarterbacks peppered in there. But it is full PPR. If you want to play over there and take advantage of what you're seeing here, use promo code Coop, COOP at myffpc.com. They'll give you $25 when you deposit $35 or more. But Chris Godwin's a guy I personally like. Last year he dealt with some injuries. In the games where he was healthy, he was getting a ton of targets. He quietly led that team in receptions. You wouldn't know it because Mike Evans had much more impact. And he also, they say he's going to play a little more slot this year. The question, of course, is he too boring for this format?
Maybe, but here's the thing. Sometimes you need boring.
Right.
Sometimes you need that boring consistency. Like it's great to swing for the fences. And I don't remember who said it, but it's like you win more hitting, home runs and doubles than just hitting singles. But every now and then you need that guy who can just consistently hit singles for when your home run guys are striking out. So I don't think that's a terrible thing. And the thing that I like the most about him is the last part you said, that he's going to play in the slot a lot more. That's when we started to see him come alive. When he got healthy, he was in the slot. He started to be a little bit more productive in that respect. And the Bucs have just straight out said it. They want him there the majority of the time this year. So we saw him thrive in that role. So that's, I think, the reason to really be optimistic about him this year.
Right. So yeah, if you're somebody that likes to go for the Marvin Harrison Juniors and Malik Nabers and draft Rashee Rice, who could get suspended or whatever, then Chris Godwin kind of gives you a license to kill, gives you a little bit of a floor. So
I'm out on Rashee Rice this year, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
it's not even a legal thing too. Like, yeah, that's part of it. But I look at what happened last year with him. He was sort of the wide receiver one there, kind of by default in Kansas City, because I mean they didn't have one, right? We spent all year talking about what's wrong with their wide receiver room, but last year so many of his touches were manufactured. They did so much to try and create opportunities for him. Now they've got a couple of guys in Marquise Brown and Xavier Worthy who can sort of win and create their own opportunities. Of course, you still have Travis Kelce, provided he's not going to, run off with his billionaire girlfriend and just travel the world. But I don't know if they are interested in manufacturing the same number of touches for Rashee Rice this year, in which case he's going to have to be uber efficient with the opportunities he does get. And I'm just not sure of that. And then throw in the fact that, yeah, maybe he gets suspended for any number of games too. That's another concern that you have to worry about.
For those watching or listening at home, what Marcus is talking about, the Chiefs led the league last year in wide receiver screens. And I'm not talking about tight end plus wide receiver. They obliterated everybody, right? Like because Kelce, but just wide receiver screens alone, they led the league. They had more than the Dolphins, who were just feeding those to Tyreek Hill and Waddle all day long. So anytime somebody leads the league in something, I'm a little worried, right? Because you can't get much better. It can only stay the same, and it's tough to year after year lead the league in anything. You
It
know?
is, and especially when Patrick Mahomes is basically coming out and saying like, "Yeah, we want to attack downfield more this year. Like, we want to be vertical more this year." Like that
Yeah.
doesn't seem to include Rashee Rice.
He doesn't have to say that because they went out and they got Marquise Brown. They went out and they drafted
Yeah,
Xavier Worthy in the first round. They told us that, you know.
yeah.
And the second leading wide receiver on the team last year was split guard Justin Watson. So I don't think that happens again this year. So next group here, we've got uh, DeAndre Hopkins at 116, Deontay Johnson, Jordan Addison, Christian Watson, all going in round 10. And then round 11, Keon Coleman, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jamison Williams, who's getting a lot of smoke lately. And then
Mm.
Brian Thomas, the rookie for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Again, same question, because I feel like it's the best question given what we're doing here. You know, grouping these guys based on where they're going and kind of the pockets we're seeing. Say this is the board. What do you got, Marcus?
I'm smashing Deontay Johnson all
Yeah.
day.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like the ADP is starting to climb because it feels like everybody almost at once, like we all looked around, and we're like, hey, wait a minute, Deontay Johnson's in Carolina. Like it felt like within the space of a week or 2 weeks, like every single fantasy analyst writer that I follow is just like, hey, by the way, maybe we shouldn't sleep on the Panthers, right? Like they spent their whole offseason trying to remake what was a terrible offense. They looked around and realized we spent the number one overall pick on Bryce Young. He had a miserable year in large part because he had no one around him. I don't know how many screenshots, how many all 22 clips I saw come across my timeline last year where it was like, who do you want Bryce Young to throw to? And like every single receiver in the route was covered.
Right.
They go out and
Yeah,
get Deontay,
exactly. Yeah.
you
There's
know,
not a lot of separation there for Adam Thielen at
not
34 years old.
right, but that's the thing. Like Adam Thielen was the best option. The ghost of Adam Thielen was the best option. I mean, look,
Right.
that guy was what, a top 10 receiver for a good chunk of the season, like
Of
early
course.
on, because
Right.
there was nowhere else for Bryce Young to go with the ball. Deontay
Yeah.
Johnson is a bona fide separator and target earner. I know people get frustrated because he has drops, and I know he get frustrated because the touchdown numbers have never been great for him, but he is going to get a ton of targets in this offense. And so, what the ADP is right now, like if you're going to get him, get in on it now because it feels like that's going to rise very soon.
Yeah. I don't care about drops. There's no negative points for drops, right? In any formats that I play in. Tyreek Hill, the only concern for drops is that you get benched. But
Yeah.
guys that truly can't catch don't even make it on the field on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right? Like Evan Engram couldn't catch the football until all of a sudden he can because right until all of a sudden he leads every tight end. Right? I watched Jimmy Graham drop 17 passes from Drew Brees once, and guess
Mhm.
what? He was the tight end one overall. I don't care.
Yeah.
Deontay Johnson, like when we talk about it, the targets are earned. I mean, talk about a guy. He's averaged 9 targets over a game for the last 4 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in on Deontay Johnson. I'm in on Deontay Johnson. I like Christian Watson, which is controversial. That's such a tough one to sort out. Again,
Yeah.
it's like the difference for me from we talked about it with the Texans to the Packers is that the Texans are expensive, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
if I'm going to play the guessing game, all three of the top Texas wide receivers go before Jaden Reed, who
Mhm.
also goes before Christian Watson. So if I want to play that guessing game, I'm gonna wait and play the cheaper guessing game, right?
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I mean, if I'm again, I would rather have Packers in a best ball format than in a redraft format because I don't want to have to sift through Watson and Reed and Dobbs and Dontavian Wicks if that's your flavor. Again, I would rather take the shot on Jordan Love and not have to deal with the headache of the receivers every week. But in best ball, it's worth the swing.
Exactly. It's like Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. That's like playing roulette, right? I look at you 50-50, whatever, right? Like you look at the wide receivers. We're paying if we're buying scratch tickets though, and the prizes are the same. The Packers scratch tickets are just cheaper than the Texans scratch.
Yep.
That's what I'm looking at. So I'm
Mhm.
like, where do I go? I'm gonna go with this guy. He's gonna just to throw on. I mean, he's doing everything he can with the hamstrings, right?
Yep.
He's doing there's an NFL grant with the University of Wisconsin. I'm not going to get too far into it, but it's not like this guy is just blowing off the entire offseason and they can't, he's not going Dennis Rodman here or even like Michael Thomas where he just is not showing it. Like he's doing what he can. Okay. If it turns out that genetically he can't play football because of his legs, well, then I guess I'm out a couple baseball teams. So what are you right? What are you gonna do? Anybody on here where you're just saying no way? And don't say Christian Watson, that would hurt my feelings.
No, it's not Christian Watson.
Are
Probably
you doing
Jordan
Keon
Addison.
Coleman? Are you doing Keon Coleman there?
A little bit.
I
You
feel like I
know,
got to do a little bit. He's such a
I get
fun
a
guy.
he's a fun guy, and there are plenty of targets available there with Stephon Diggs gone. So I think that that sort of helps a little bit. I guess if there's anybody that I'm kind of out on, it's probably Jordan Addison. And I mean, it hurts my heart because I don't want to ever talk bad about a USC Trojan, but um, it's the quarterback situation, right? Well, I got to talk about another Trojan, Sam Darnold. Right now, looks like the starter. Even if he's not, like, I don't know that I'm all in on JJ McCarthy like that. Like, I don't know how many guys they can support, and I think Jordan Addison is, Justin Jefferson's going to eat. I don't know how much is going to be left over for everybody else. So Addison's probably the guy that I have shied away from the most.
Yeah. The unfortunate truth in fantasy football is that the best players don't always score the most points.
Yeah,
It's the way it goes. You know what I mean?
yeah,
George Kittle, everyone agrees that George Kittle is one of the best tight ends, if not the best two-way tight end in the league, but he doesn't always score the most points because of the situation he's in, right?
yep.
It's like you gotta understand that sometimes bad players have better opportunities. Sometimes good players gotta wait. Chris Godwin had to wait. Jordan Addison, if Kirk Cousins was still there, no problem. But I think he's being drafted like nothing has changed.
By the way, can we talk about Jameson Williams real quick? Because I know everybody's like high on him because like Dan Campbell praised him, like all the reports out of OTAs or that he's looking better and what have you. Um, he's still at best the third target in
Yeah.
his own offense.
With two running backs that catch the ball
Right.
really well.
So he's at best is the third target. He could be the fourth target, depending on how many targets, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to get there. So I get it. Like, he's super talented and he's had a rough start to his career. I mean, he was hurt coming out of college. So he pretty much missed all of his rookie year. Then he had the suspension last year, got hurt again. Like, it's been a pretty
Mhm.
rough start to Jameson Williams' career. The talent we know is certainly there, but you talk about situation, and even with Jared Goff playing well in this offense that is super dynamic, like, is there really enough for Jameson Williams to have a big year? And I don't know. I just don't
Right.
know.
And this is why you need to really sit down and think about this stuff because you look at the projections. Like say you go and look at Mike Clay's projections for Jameson Williams. They're gonna look the same as Tyler Lockett's. They're gonna look the same as, maybe even a guy like Chris Godwin, but the range of outcomes
Yeah.
is so much wider. Like Tyler
Mhm.
Lockett's gonna live in that small range of outcomes. This guy could be terrible. This guy could be really good. I'll tell you right now, if you want to draft him in this format. Draft him in
Yeah.
best ball. Don't
Yes.
don't draft him in redraft. You're gonna be pulling your hair out. And I don't want to hear those questions on Sunday morning. Should I start Jameson Williams or should I start, Chris Godwin? It's like, I don't know. You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
know,
It's like,
man.
how do you need the extra juice? Like, we don't know what James Williams is going to do today. It could be amazing. It could be nothing. So, please, 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 please try and don't do that to me. Don't do that for my sake.
uh,
Group 8, let's crank through this. Group 8, we've got Cortland Sutton in the fancy looking orange uniforms. Curtis Samuel, Mike Williams, Tyler Lockett, Romeo Dubs, Khalil Shakir, Jacoby Myers, Rashid Shaheed. Give us a pick. You're not allowed to pick Tyler Lockett.
oh, okay. I was gonna say Rashid Shaheed anyway.
Yeah, let's
Um,
go. Talk about a best ball pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a best ball pick. I was laughing. I saw Ian Hartitz tweeting maybe a month or so ago. He was in like a mock draft or whatever, and he got Rashid Shaheed, right around this spot, round 12, 13, whatever. He's like, I can't believe I got the Saints number one wide receiver this late. Um, you know,
He's he's one of
Ian's
my favorites, man. Because
Ian's the
it's like
best.
if you can be smart and mix in just enough humor in there, that's what I want to follow. That's what
Yeah.
I want to follow on Twitter.
No, Ian is 100% the best.
Yeah.
Obviously he was being facetious because they got
Of
Chris
course
Olave
he
in
is.
there,
He always
but
is. But
always is.
he's also something in there every time. You
But it's
know what I
also,
mean?
a great day to be great all the time with Ian. But there is a path for Shaheed to get a whole lot of opportunity in this offense. Now, the cap on it is the fact that Derek Carr is still the quarterback. And so that's obviously going to put a cap on what his production can be. But I mean, in best ball, there are going to be those weeks. Look, I guarantee you there's going to be some week where he's in there and he gives you like a 4 for 112 and a touchdown, right? You're going to suffer through the 3 for 36s, but but
Right.
but there are some boom weeks coming. I love Rashid Shaheed here.
You don't have to suffer in best ball. Don't
I
have to
know.
suffer. You don't have to
No.
suffer. That's the beauty. So yeah. And again, people forget Michael Thomas, man. He played some football last year. He got 74 targets, right? They didn't replace that at all. They didn't,
Mhm.
right? So So there's opportunity there, unless you think A.T.
I was
Perry
gonna say, is A.T. Perry gonna be the guy now?
Juwan Johnson. I don't know. The more I say those names, the more I like Rashid Shaheed. So I'm with you on that one. Jacoby Myers, not he's again very conservative, but not quite a guy I'm taking here. One guy I personally am out on. I want to hear your opinion on before we move. Khalil Shakir. He's a very divisive guy.
Um, I mean, I'm not out on him. I don't know that I'm excited about him. I mean, I think he's sort of Gabe Davis-y,
Yeah.
maybe a little lesser, like a Kirkland version of Gabe Davis, I guess a little bit. Um,
Gabe Davis is already kind of a Costco guy. I mean,
right,
it's like we're talking about now you're
So
getting deep. Once you're getting the bootleg versions of the bootleg versions, now we're talking Dr. Thunder here. And
yeah, I
I'm
mean,
not super. I
hey,
mean,
man,
it tastes fine.
in the right
Right.
situation, you throw some rum in there, like it's fine,
There you go.
whatever.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
sure he'll throw rum in there every once in a while because it's Josh Allen.
because
That's
it's
fair.
Josh Allen, exactly. So, like, yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not like oh, under no circumstances, but yeah, I'm not super fired up about. Like I said, I probably would take more shots on Keon Coleman than Khalil Shakir.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Curtis Samuel there, another one. I don't want to play that game. I don't want to play that
Not
game.
anymore. I used to be.
Yeah, I mean,
I
because
used to be.
gets a carry every once in a while. I mean, he had that one year where he had like 40 carries for 200 yards, like 2 touchdowns. That was the only difference between him being a wide receiver 3 and a wide receiver 2 that one year. Every
And
other
that's
year,
I think I'm starting to be out on those guys who are like, hey, he's gonna catch the football and he's gonna get some carries. Like, trust me, you were talking to one of the biggest Laviska Chenault stands that there
right?
was. Like, I really did. I tried to make fetch happen with Visca
Oh,
for probably 1 or 2 years too many. Um,
brother, Percy Harvin, bro. There's so much Percy Harvin in my heart. It
just
just,
I can't anymore with these guys. Like, everybody's
yeah,
like, oh, he can be the next Debo. And I'm like, Debo's a one of one. Like, that's
right.
just not. We may go a long time before we ever see anything like that again.
Yeah, and especially I'll tell you, especially in redraft, no. I'm not trying to play the rushing touchdown guessing game.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-mm. Not
Yeah,
even a little
thanks for the birthday shout outs and Wendy, of course. Oh my
Hi,
god, it's
Wendy.
Marcus Grant. It is Marcus Grant, dude. The very best, man. So okay, let's get through the end here. I'll get you out of here. It's birthday weekend, so we got things to do.
Get you out of here, man.
I said I got a wagon ride with Lindsay coming up, dude, the big one, dude. So yeah. So we'll just do the last couple groups here. I'm just gonna do that same quick question and we'll move on.
Yep.
No dilly dallying. Uh, next group, round 14, Brandon Cooks, Jerry Judy, Jahan Dotson, Josh Palmer, and Adonai Mitchell, the rookie.
Yeah, next question.
Just running back, right?
I mean,
There
yeah,
has to be that part of the draft, though. There has
it
to
really
be.
does. I mean, I guess if I'm picking from this group, maybe Jahan Dotson. If I somehow missed on Terry McLaurin, maybe I take the swing at Jahan Dotson.
Yeah.
Although he's sort of
Okay.
underwhelmed, but yeah.
Let me hit you with the next group because this might be. There's been times where I scroll down and then I scroll back up. Right. So we scroll down. You got Josh Downs, Gabe Davis, Dontavian Wicks, Xavier Leggett, Quentin Johnston, Adam Thielen, and then the Moondog Darnell Mooney with his new team, the Atlanta Falcons.
I think this is a case where peer pressure sort of works. Like, I've seen people talking about Dontavian Wicks,
Oh, he's doing it.
including
Yeah.
my pal and wide receiver whisperer Matt Harmon, who was sort of on Dontavian Wicks. So peer pressure sort of works, and he's the guy that I'm sort of swinging at right now.
Sometimes that's the thing though. Sometimes you just have a guy that's good, and that's that good. And I'll tell you what, I don't mind Romeo Dubs. He played a ton of snaps, but
Mhm.
Romeo Dubs, it's like that movie. It's like The Departed when he's like there's guys he can hit, there's guys he can't hit. Well, Romeo Dubs not exactly a guy you can't hit, right?
Right.
Like if it turns out that Wicks is as good as people have been saying, and a lot of the behind the scenes numbers back it up, he might just become the an every down player. Sometimes
Yeah.
guys you just got to get him on the field.
It's just
So
such a crowded wide receiver room. But again, this is the beauty of best ball, right? You can take that
right,
swing and not have to worry about it.
okay. Anybody here, you just complete hands off, never drafting.
Probably Gabe Davis.
Yeah, he if he's not going to do it as the clear every down number 2 wide receiver for Josh Allen, then I just don't know when he's going to do it.
Yeah. So yeah, probably Gabe Davis. I guess Darnell Mooney probably too. Hang on.
Same guy. The league told us they're the same guy. They got the same contract, right?
Yeah.
It was one guy gets signed, and they're like, "Yep, that's the deal. That's what guys like
Exactly.
you get paid." So you want it? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I think they got overpaid. To be honest, good for them.
Yeah, man.
Uh,
Go get your money.
get it, dude. Group 11, and this is where everyone says, what rookies are out there? I don't care.
Yeah.
Jermaine Burton, rookie. Troy Franklin, rookie. Roman Wilson, rookie. Jalen Polk, rookie. Wanda Robinson, not a rookie. Demario Pop Douglas, not a rookie. And then Ricky Pearsall and Rashad Bateman. That's the crew. A lot of rookies in there.
I am really shocked that Jermaine Burton is hanging around on the board as long as he has, right? Because like character concerns don't matter for fantasy. Like,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't care, dude.
you know, like
I do not.
I understand why he fell in the actual NFL draft, and even then, he ended up going earlier than I think a lot of
Right.
people anticipated. But I mean, this is a guy that if off field concerns weren't a thing, people were talking about him as a day one pick. I mean, the talent is certainly there. I know. Look, you still have Jamar Chase at the moment. You still have T. Higgins there in Cincinnati. But we've seen this team run 3 wide receiver sets. We know the offense is good. We know the quarterback, when healthy, is very, very good. Why Jermaine Burton is hanging around this long, I don't know.
Right. And I'll tell you, like, Greg Gabriel, the Bears former scout, came out and he was like, see, we didn't draft Antonio Brown because we all knew he was crazy. And Bears thinking that would be a big win. And Bears fans were like, wait a second, you knew Antonio
I
Brown was
mean,
good and you didn't draft him?
like, okay, yeah, maybe he was crazy, but how long did it take for him to implode? Like, we went a long time before the
That's what
implosion.
I'm saying. He was a wide receiver 1 for 4 straight seasons, Greg.
We went almost a decade before he yanked his shirt off and ran off the field, right? Like, we went a long time before that.
He thought he was saying something, and everyone was like, are you kidding me, Greg? Like, you knew. Especially with the Bears passing game, the way it's
if it's a day that ends in Y, he's probably getting dunked
right.
on
Yeah.
Twitter.
And you look at all those guys. I mean, you look at all those, all the wide receivers from day 5 for the most part. Day 3 for the most part that break out. Like Julian Edelman was a quarterback.
Yeah.
Pierre Garcon went to D3 school. Like you're looking for excuses. We want excuses. I need a reason why this guy fell. Besides the fact that he's not good. So yeah,
I'll also say real quick, I like Jalen Polk here in this spot too, just because there are targets to be had in New England. I mean, every spot is pretty much up for grabs for that Patriots offense. So Polk's a guy that I'm also taking some shots at.
What if Drake May is good, right? Like
What
Nico
if?
Collins, no one thought about Nico Collins the way that we do now until CJ Stroud showed up.
Yeah.
Right. No one thought of him that way until all of a sudden a rookie quarterback showed up and was good. And it's, Deshaun Watson was good as a rookie. We've seen rookies be good. He could be terrible. I don't know. I'm a Patriots fan. I'm hoping he's good. I don't know, dude. I'm hoping that he's going to keep it going. All right. Last one here. And I just took everybody else. The thing is, FFPC, if you want to play over there, if you like deep cut wide receivers, this one, it goes later than every other format. This one goes like 20 rounds. I'm not going to make you do 20 rounds. What I did is I threw a bunch of names together, and you just got to pick one, maybe two. So here's the rest of them. I'm not even going to read them. Please, if you want to know who's on this list, go over to YouTube, Fantasy Alarm, like, subscribe. A like, it costs you nothing. It really helps us out. So go get that set up. And if you really want to do me a big favor on my birthday, the way to support us, go over to fantasyalarm.com/bestball and buy a best ball draft guide right now. It's a $25 present that it truly means a lot to me because I did everything in it. We do all the shows for that reason. That's the birthday gift I'd like more than anything.
Instead of sending him that $25 Starbucks gift card or whatever, just like spend the money here.
I know how to make coffee, dude. I buy coffee. I got coffee right here. Actually, dude, this morning my wife got me I woke up to a McGriddle and a hash brown. Yeah, big day here at the Coop.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
but if you don't even have to buy me a McGriddle, a like or subscribe on the YouTube is free and helps us out. Now that you've had a chance to digest this incredible list of players, Marcus, the superstars available, who are you throwing a dart at?
It's either Michael Wilson or Javon Baker. With Baker, it's sort of the Polk thing, right? I mean, there are opportunities to get on the field and get targets. It's the what if Drake May is good sort of thing. Michael Wilson, last year, I thought he could kind of be a deep sleeper there in Arizona. Obviously, he's going to be behind Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride in terms of targets. But, there's an opportunity for him, I think, to move up a little bit, to progress a little bit from where he was. And again, the price is right. He's basically free 99. So, Michael Wilson's probably the other guy I like there.
Yeah, I like it too, man. I liked the Michael Wilson narrative last year. They play split end. They need a split end. It'll allow Marvin Harrison Jr. to not have to tether his foot to the line, which as a rookie, I mean, that's a tough ask, right?
Yeah.
To face the jam at the NFL level. But enough about these. I don't. We don't need to talk about this group of guys any longer. Tell it, dude. Thank you so much for coming on,
Of
man.
course.
Absolute one of my very favorites. One of the guys that I trust your opinion on more than just football, as we've talked about, man. When this guy talks, listen, give him a follow on Twitter. Tell everybody what you got going.
Yeah, you find me on Twitter at Marcus G, Marcas, and the initial G. Still doing the NFL Fantasy Football podcast with Michael F. Florio and Laquan Jones. We also do a live stream on Thursdays we call the Fantasy Cheat Sheet that you can find on YouTube. Also, because I'm not in enough places, I do a show over at Matthew Berry's Fantasy Life with a very smart man named Dwayne McFarland, who makes me better at this job every time I talk to him. And then if you're in the Los Angeles area or you just have the interwebs, I occasionally do some fill-in stuff on radio at ESPN 710 in Los Angeles. If you want to hear me whine about the Dodgers every single day, you can do that over there too.
There it is. The guys everywhere still makes time to come hang out with the Fantasy Alarm family over here. Special birthday treat for me and for
Yeah,
everybody.
man. Again, happy birthday from us May guys. You know, we are the best.
We gotta stick together, dude.
We got to stick together, man. For
right?
sure.
Especially if they let people start changing birthdays. I think May's gonna get flooded.
It's going to
So
get overloaded, man.
yeah,
I don't
we
know.
gotta enjoy it while we got
We
it.
might have to gatekeep a little bit.
That's right. Yeah. So hey, thank you for coming in. Thank you everybody in the chat. And we just